for something. I've been down the darkest roads and up in the clouds, but I've always felt that something's missing. That was until I found you right there in the crowd. You came into my life and started a fire. You made me feel like I could touch the sky. Oh, there's nothing missing now that you're my desire. Now all I have to do is to make you mine. 'Cause I know, and you know what we could be. Like a song, like a perfect melody. Baby, don't say you don't believe in me. 'Cause you know, and I know, we're onto something good. You know, and I know.
Ooh. Hey everyone, how's it going? Bonnie Violet here. I am a transgender queer spiritual drag, and hopefully my sound is good. I'm just going to check it real quick. Looks like it is. So, hello again. My name is Bonnie Violet. I'm a transgender queer spiritual drag artist, and I am doing something new. Actually, it's something that's been on my mind for quite some time now. And I almost didn't do it, but I had told myself I was going to. So this is the start of the Say Something series. With Say Something, I've had it on my mind that I just feel like there's things I'd like to share, as in like stories or what has become useful tools for me to use at this point in time in my life. Um, I love interviewing people. I love getting interviewed, but I'm excited to have an opportunity to just kind of like, I don't know, put some stuff out there and see what people have to think. Sometimes, I don't know if you are like me, but sometimes I just feel like I have something to say. And when I first got into drag about 3 months ago, one of the first numbers that I really performed to was called "Say Something," and it was the idea was around my childhood, and this idea that I would get censored about being trans, my femininity, and my dad would say things, and then my mom would say nothing, and then I got, church started to come at me and tell me that I wasn't right because of my identity and who I was and who I loved and all that sort of stuff. And God said nothing. And then I started censoring myself and telling myself all these sorts of things that I kept hearing. And I continued to say nothing. And so I just encourage people to say something. And so that's kind of what I'm doing now. So Say Something Sundays, I'm anticipating doing this once a week for a few weeks. And I have some really exciting topics. I did put them in the description. Tonight I'm going to talk about desire for God. No longer desperate is going to be the topic of conversation. And it's actually kind of fitting. This was going to be my first episode, and I don't know about you all, but in life, oftentimes, like when things are coming up, things just kind of happen in a way that lead up to whatever's happening. Sometimes whether you like intend it or not. And this morning I woke up and I was not feeling it. Like I was on the verge of tears. I was just feeling really sad and really down, and I really didn't quite understand where it was coming from. And um, luckily for me, I have a mentor in recovery, and I had a time to meet with him this morning, and I really didn't want to. I was just really not feeling it. I was feeling like, "Ugh, I'm not in the mood for like whatever," and ended up meeting with him, which is always lovely and great. And, at the end of it, I was just bawling. And it was like those times when you're like, you need to cry and you're like trying to cry and you can't stop not crying, but you're not really like letting it out either way. And it was, it kind of got me to this space of like feeling sad. And I think in the past, I would label it um, maybe desperate. It got me thinking, am I desperate? Am I desperate for um, God in my life? Am I desperate for a higher experience or something like that? And And I was like, no, I'm not desperate. I still have the desire versus the desperation. And I think words and how I phrase things have become really important for me in how I kind of like view my past and move into my future. And so I try really hard not to speak poorly about my past anymore, or I don't know, I'm just really playing with my language. And I think coming at something in a state of desperation um, creates relationships and responses to you as if you're desperate. And I have been in that, I think it's been really important for me to, like, it's needed for me to get to a point that I became desperate for God, that I became desperate for something to like pull me out of myself, to help me to get to do something different because I just kind of kept doing the same things and getting the same results and just not knowing how to get different results and very unwilling to hear what anyone else would suggest or had in mind. I mean, like a big part of my life was all about like somehow I just got over shit and I like was able like I had to keep doing it even though people were saying that you can't do it or it can't be done. So there was an element of needing to push through that stuff. But also in doing that, I got to a place where I wasn't allowing the good things in. And those good things, it's like I got so good at like keeping those bad things away that I think it got to the point where some of the good stuff wasn't getting in. And I reached a point in my life, which for me was very significant when I decided not to use drugs and alcohol anymore. And that's when I was able to identify that I was desperate for God. I was desperate for a different way of life. I was just desperate for different results. I had really gotten to a point where I realized that I could not I just didn't know how to do anything different than how I was doing it. And thankfully for me, I was able to kind of come to learn that, because I thought that like people like myself, a queer person, a trans person, a drug addict, however way you want to label me or I labeled myself, that made me think that somehow I wasn't eligible or worthy or valuable to God, like, and that somehow there was no one in the world that was really out there to help me either, and somehow I just had to do it on my own. And I believe that somewhere deep and down, I believe that God kind of like made me this way and gave me this special tenacity to be able to like push through and go through these things, which was helpful. I mean, that was a great thing to, it was useful until it wasn't, until I couldn't escape the fact that that just wasn't the truth, that the truth was that I not only needed God and I needed other people in my life. There was that desperation, but I did have the desire as well. But I had always had the desire, but I didn't know how to make it work, And the desperation, I think the reason why it's become really important for me now to speak about desperation, desire versus desperation. And I think a lot of my future topics are going to be kind of along the lines in the same vein of things. So I would encourage you. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there because I think a lot of these topics are just going to kind of bleed into one another. But like I had talked about, like really trying to frame things in a different way, me coming at something with a desire for God, this is also partly what I'm saying. A big part of my life right now is I'm trying to balance my vocation, what I do for a living or quote unquote my work, and relational. Like, how do I balance being successful and well and showing up for both of those things at the same time? Because that's something that I've really had a very difficult time. And I've just, I've come to learn how to be in relationship with others through my relationship with God, through how I approach God and how I relate to God helps me to be in relationship with my fellows and the other people on this earth that I get to be doing life with. And so I think it's really important for me to come out with God. I mean, and I don't, and this might be another way for other folks, but I know like I've also been doing therapy for 7 years now. And a big part of my therapy process has been learning how to talk about things that I don't know how to talk about to other people because I'm afraid of judgment. I'm afraid that they won't talk to me anymore. I'm afraid of half the time, honestly, I don't even know what I'm afraid of. But I had to learn to be able to kind of talk through some things because it was really helpful for me to get out of my head, um, and start to form words behind what my experience was, and so that I could really come to know myself more and to know my experience more, and to have somebody affirm the feelings that often came with my experiences. I often um, had shame, or felt like I shouldn't be having the feelings that I was having, or the thoughts that I was having, or the behaviors that I was having, because um, like like I just shouldn't. And I don't know where I kinda lost my train of thought because I'll do that from time to time. But through my relationship with my therapist, I was able to then open up and talk about some of these things that I knew, like, they were risky to tell him, but a little less risky, because my relationship with him was an exchange. It was just a different sort of dynamic, and my relationship with friends and family and loved ones, there's just a lot more at risk. There's a lot more at stake, and so it took me a while to open up. But through my ability to be able to process with my therapist, and through prayer now, once I was able to include God in my life, um, once I can kind of process and talk with God or my therapist, and I don't mean to use those as one and the same, but through those two relationships, I've learned how to be in better relationship with people in which we maybe don't have that same paradigm. Um, so in that, I think I feel that, and I'll talk with this a little bit about around the codependency. I think that a lot of institutions and churches and establishments and healing places really kind of create a codependency, versus like a, a codependency upon it. And I think this need for desperation, this need to, oftentimes, my dad, he used to always, when I was growing up, my dad used to always call Jesus, my church was my crutch. And for him at the time, substances was a crutch for him, and he equated those to the same thing. Like, those are the things that we used in order to do life, and to feel good in life, and to try to do our best in life, I guess. And I didn't understand that at the time, but it made sense for me now. And I have had the relationship with God, um, that I'm coming to God in a crutch always. And I just don't think that that's true. I don't believe that I walk around in crutches anymore. And I don't mean to use the reference of a crutch in any way to be offensive or insensitive, but um, for me, it just represents the need to, again, the need to need something else to kind of hold me up, to the need for something else to lift me, and to aid in my life. And I think that need is there, right? It's always going to be there. But I think, again, having that need met through a desperation is not. I just don't know. It hasn't been helpful for me to perceive myself as an individual who is still walking around in that state. Um, I have come to really have a desire for God. I don't have a reluctance or a resentment toward God. Half the time I don't know what it is, and I don't understand it, and like all that sort of stuff. But I don't have like a like, "Fine, I'll let you help me," or like, "All right, you know, um, I I need you, so I guess I'm gonna do this," or like, "I don't know how to do this, so," like that sort of attitude about it. And I think you can still have gratitude and desperation, don't get me wrong, but I think it's been helpful for me to get to a point where I can have a desire for God. And that doesn't mean I still don't have that need, if you will. But I've just gotten to the point in my life where having that desire to seek whatever that might be, and to understand that, yeah, just like the desire to it causes me to approach things a lot differently. I know I feel like I spoke a lot about the desperation a little more, but maybe that's what it takes to get to the desire. That has been my experience, and it's not to say I didn't have a desire all along because I did, but the desperation was like the driving factor. And I think that's probably a little bit of ways of helping me understand too that desire might be at the forefront, um, but maybe there still is some desperation back there. I think one of the things that's been why desire has become so important for me is I've spent most of my life not knowing really what I want, and thinking that what I wanted wasn't necessary. It wasn't anything that I really, I didn't really need much, like really, really need much to get by. Um, but just because I don't really need as much to get by does not mean that I don't have wants and I can't have wants and I can't have desires, and it's healthy for me to have those sorts of things, but not to depend on them or to expect that they're going to happen. Um, so me as like a recovered drug addict, somebody who is codependent, um, you know, like the idea of desire, chasing that desire, chasing that thing that makes you feel good, that thing that that the thing that sparkles, um, was something that like I did, um, and I still do to some degree. Um, I lost my train of thought there for a second, but in kind of getting back to the desire be oh yeah, and like I can't be trusted with having desires. Like I've come to the point that I know that like it's okay for me to want and it's okay for me to have desires, and it's actually okay for me to live beyond what has happened to me. I've settled for so long just to be okay, or just to be like healed, or just to be on the other side of things. Um, and I don't believe that God wants that for any us for that for any of us. I don't think that, God or however whatever you kind of believe, I don't think that we're here just to survive. I think that we're here to thrive and to live our best lives as best we can. And I think many of us, we get life happens to us in such crazy ways that we can't like we get to a place where all we can do is just try to survive, and most of the time it doesn't even feel like we're doing that well. But if we wake up with breath in our mouth, I guess we're surviving. And I guess I'm just out of that space of desperation, which I think is probably equal to survival. Like I want to live in the space of that I'm not fighting for my life. When I'm fighting for my life, when I'm in fear, when I'm like, that's, it's a motivator and it has been a motivator, but I don't know that, um, I just don't know that maybe I've gotten all the results from having that sort of experience with God and with life. And, maybe by having a desire and connecting with the desire rather than the fear of whatever, to kind of chase and to seek something that will pull me beyond that, like be pull me beyond what my experience has been up to this point and beyond what I even thought was possible. I mean, that is one thing that I can say is that like I lack imagination. Like I am going to sell my short self short every day if I list up the things that I want to experience on this life. The more that I've continued to seek some sort of spiritual way of life, and I've referred to God in this today, just as kind of like a fill in the blank, to whatever it is your understanding is around purpose or higher self or God or whatnot. Whatever it is that um I don't know. So I feel like I'm just at a place in time in which I want to I want to approach life, and I want to approach God, and I want to approach you, um, from a state of desire and a state in which my actions and my presentation and the way that I can show up is from a state of desire versus a state of like need or desperation, like that I can get something. And I don't like with God, even like that I'm in relationship with God so that I can get something. Um, I don't want that relationship with I don't want that relationship with anyone or anything. And sometimes it's blurry and sometimes it's hard to know um, w- what part of me is driving or is at the helm. And so I've really just been trying to put that idea of desire, and my desire is to show up and be present in the people that I love life. And in like and I feel like I'm learning that by my relationship with God. Like I have a desire to have God in my life. I don't need my family in my life, but I want them. I don't need you in my life. Like, but I want you, and yeah, like way back in the back, there is this need. Like I cannot do it by myself. Like there's that space in which my desperate self knows that I need you, but I also have a desire. Like I want you. And I want God, and I just want what I believe God has created all of us to experience. And I want to liberate myself, because I know that a lot of my um, difficulty and inability to experience joy more often and freedom more often and being present more often, it, a lot of that power it's mine. And I I just give it away, uh, or I tell myself it's other people's power, and it really isn't. Um, so today I have a desire um, to be with God, and yes, there's a need, but it's a true want and it's a desire, and I don't even know what it is. I don't even know. I don't know. All I know is that the more I try to seek it and try to be with it, the better I am, um, with myself. Um, and then that causes me to be better with you. And I wanted to keep this to around 20 minutes or so. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that. And wherever you are at in your whatever it is that's driving you, um, just come to understand what it is and why it is at the forefront. And is it serving you? And if it's not, is there something else that you can put in front? And that's what I've been choosing to do of late is in my mind, in the words that come out of my mouth and in the decisions that I make, I'm trying to approach things as if I have a desire for God. I have a desire for you. I have a desire for more. Like I have desires and that's okay. And I might not ever get those desires met. Um, but being able to be honest with myself and to have those desires, I think most days it allows me just to walk a little lighter and to look a little farther in my experience, and in life. So I'm going to do this every week, on Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Some of the upcoming topics are going to be the delusion or the illusion of brokenness and separateness. I also want to talk a little bit about the origins of Bonnie Violet. How did Bonnie Violet become Bonnie Violet? What's the story of like where did I come from? Um, fuck the golden rule. Basically, I'm going to not tell you what that is yet, but I just don't think the golden rule is enough. I think that there is a different way that maybe we could approach things that I've found kind of helpful, I guess. I like the idea of forgive them for they know not what they do. Um, for me, that's kind of the understanding, people who don't, the God hates fags kind of folks, and whatnot, which I know, and it's kind of like a pull from the Bible and whatever. But that's all coming. I also want to talk about like being transmitting healing versus hurt, and helping to create a world and community in which more healing is transmitted than hurt. Um, and I think I'll just leave it at that. But thank you for joining tonight live if you were live, or listening this after. Um, if you're watching live, you can watch live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch at A Queer Chaplain at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or you can listen to it or watch it afterwards at all those same places, as well as I will be uploading it to the Queer Chaplain podcast, where you can listen to it there, usually probably within about 30 minutes to an hour after the show. I'll also be uploading to Instagram and moments of it to TikTok. So I'd love to hear from you if you have any thoughts or ideas about this. But it just feels nice to just take a moment and say something.
I've been waiting all my life for something. I've been down the darkest roads and up in the clouds, but I've always felt that something's missing. That was until I found you